And it is important that we begin with this point so as to see how liberalism has been defined throughout history and how these definitions are in actuality the first step to how the Muslims have been duped and deceived into believing that liberalism is actually a good thing, rather than understand it for what it truly is in the context of the Sharia. The Sharia meaning the Qur'an and Sunnah. It is important to recognize these subtle deceptions so that we know if we as Muslims can even be liberals, so it is important that we recognize these subtle deceptions so that we know if we as Muslims can even be liberals or not, and if the two things can even coexist. As we mentioned, these definitions we will soon see just exactly how the liberal philosophy in reality goes against the very core beliefs and identity that Muslims hold. The terms liberalism or liberty and liberation originate from the Latin term libre. It is also used in French as libre and liberté, which means to be free and freedom. Liberalism is a political and economic doctrine that emphasizes individual autonomy, equality of opportunity, and the protection of individual rights, primarily to life, liberty, and property. Originally against the state, and later against both the state and private economic actors, including businesses. So it started in the beginning as a philosophy to go against the church that was oppressing those in Europe about 300 to 400 years ago. And so this doctrine came about in order to go against the state at that time, and the state at that time were those governing Europe based on the church. However, they were oppressing the people in those lands. Liberalism is a political doctrine that takes protecting and enhancing the freedom of the individual to be the central problem of politics, meaning the core and the most important part of politics is the freedom of the individual. And what is meant by that is that the sole objective of liberalism is how it can enhance the freedoms of the individual. Why is this important to pay attention to here? Because for one, when the sole objective is to cater to freedoms, what about the hereafter? Meaning if the sole objective is to cater to freedoms that are to be granted in this life alone, then what about the hereafter? As Muslims, we believe in a life after death, and we believe that we are on this earth for a greater purpose than our own individual rights and freedoms. So does liberalism address that? No, it does not. And that is the first serious problem that we find with this movement. And that is that liberalism has absolutely no connection to spirituality, nor a connection to one's creator, whether that be Islam or otherwise. And in that, it is akin to secularism and atheism, which is to remove all spirituality and religion from life altogether. Which takes us to our second problem with liberalism, which is that these freedoms and rights that are to be protected and enhanced have absolutely no source, reference, or origin in religion. Which means that these quote-unquote freedoms and quote-unquote rights are completely left to the individuals themselves. There is no right or wrong, there is no good or bad, there is no moral or immoral. In fact, the very founders of this philosophy, known as liberalism, made it a point that the understanding of what is morally good should not have any connection to any divine being or any scripture of any kind or any religion. In this regard, what is morally accepted is solely left to the individual, and not even what Allah, He who created the heavens and the earth, he who provides for his creation, whether animal or human, he who provides for his creation, whether animal or human, and whether they believe in him or not, meaning kafir or Muslim, and oppose that according to this philosophy.